Is Russia desperate to make any offensive gains ahead of the US's aid package? Just what are they targeting, and how are they going to try to compress their entire summer offensive into a couple of weeks? I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. Let's talk about it. So this is, to me, the most interesting story is that Russia, it's been pretty obvious knowledge that Russia's been planning a summer offensive. And the most notable target, at least in their early offensive phase, was the town of Chasiv Yar. And you can see here, let's see if we can open this up here. Now, bear in mind, this is called global.expresso.tv, so I don't put a ton of stock into it. But this is quoting from a reserve major in the Ukrainian National Guard, saying that the Russian summer offensive, the Ukrainian forces won't be waiting until June 1st. It's already begun. And you can see here, right, this sort of graphic produced by the news outlet shows Russian forces pushing near Bodanivka and trying to take the town of Chasiv Yar. And that is supposedly the objective of Russian forces to do by May 9th, which is May Day for Russia. And you know that one of Putin's overall propaganda points in talking to the public is that he wants the Russian public to link the conflict in Ukraine with the Second World War. So by making battlefield victories on a day that is very significant to the Soviet era Russia, he's helping to link those two ideas, that what he's doing is an extension of the glory days of Soviet Russia, and May Day is a huge one of that. I believe... I believe it is considered actually, May 9th is Victory Day, commemorating the Soviet victory over Germany in 1945. So again, a huge symbolic win for Putin, and something that's very classically like Soviet, right? To align major victories to holidays, particularly ones that sort of line up with the ideology of the holiday. Now, why, though, is Russia supposedly moving its whole offensive plan forward? And here, let's take a look on the map real quick, because I think this is pretty significant. You can see here in the last 24 hours, Russian forces advancing into the town of Novomykhailivka. This is something where Russian forces have been piecemeal advancing block by block over the last several days and even weeks. But you can see this is likely part of an effort to kind of creep along these network of towns, kind of hopscotch, for lack of a better word, through this area here. And expand into these towns. But you can see there's not really anything that's in danger of encirclement. Maybe the small town of Vodiane, but the town of Volodar not in danger of encirclement. So I think Ukrainian forces have said, hey, listen, we can fight a retreating fight here because the risk of substantial changes to the front lines are pretty minimal. In contrast, though, the major Russian crux of the Russian effort is in Chasiv Yar. And here, there's actually been reports of Russian forces declaring that they have taken the town of Bodanivka. That's fairly recently, but you can see also that Russian forces have been trying to advance south in Chasiv Yar. As I've talked about, the terrain is not very favorable here, at least from this map perspective, where it looks like Russian forces are advancing along this low ground. And frankly, low ground next to a river in the Ukrainian rainy season is a pretty bad prospect, right? It's literally a slog. It's literally like a bog, but also you are literally fish in a barrel. There's even water at the bottom. So that's why I think you've seen Russian forces plunge into this area and then not really go anywhere, right? You can see we walk back a week plus and Russian forces are just literally bogged down here. I think that's probably what they're experiencing. And the Ukrainians may have literally let them advance just to put them into a kill zone. But you can see also Russian forces having taken and secured this Bodanivka region. But they have a long way, right? As we've talked about, the heights around Chasiv Yar, very difficult. Russian forces' best strategy is to conduct these frontal assaults to try to shave off little pieces of terrain. If they can get into the city, it's much harder for Ukrainian forces to stop them. The fighting becomes more house to house. But Russia thought it had, it could measure in months the timetable to take this, what it considers an operational target. But that's just not the case, right? They were expecting the Ukrainian army to totally collapse. That seems like it's not going to happen because, as we talked about, some Ukrainian stores, right? Some Ukrainian stores are already being thrown down range because Ukrainians were marshaling their resources, saying, listen, we need to stretch our artillery further, right? And so we need to it's like having the last little bit of your jar of peanut butter, right? When you have half a loaf of bread and no more peanut butter is coming, you've just got to be really thin with the remaining peanut butter, right? But if you know tomorrow you're getting a big hulking jar of Jif, well, you could just scoop that peanut butter all the way out of the jar and slather your next piece of toast. So the Ukrainians know that when it comes to artillery, they can start to slather the Russians in the stuff because, frankly, they're going to have more of it, right? The grocery, the grocery delivery is on its way. The order's all but confirmed. Now, remember, it's got to go through the Senate and it's got to go to the president. The president has made clear he wants to sign this. And the Senate, frankly, has already shown they're willing to sign this. They're willing to sign on to a deal like this. So most analysts think this is mostly just sort of perfunctory at this point. And the DoD is already pulling stuff out of stores and getting ready to push it to the Ukrainian soldiers. So I think for Russia, they're probably saying, listen, the Ukrainians are already going to defend more tightly, and it's only going to get harder. So they need to push now. So that is why we're seeing this sort of offensive action by Russian forces. Now, if you need the energy to push hard, you probably saw it already on there. You know what? You don't need to wait for Joe Biden in Congress and Mike Johnson. You don't have to. You can just go to strikegum.com, pick up some strike gum. 90 milligrams of caffeine, total energy, 0 sugar, and it's designed by me, right? This is something that solves the problem that I had in Afghanistan of having to cart around energy drinks to get caffeine. It drove me absolutely crazy. Energy drinks taste disgusting. They're more expensive now than they were when I was in Afghanistan. Right now, you go to a gas station, they're like $4.50. This one little piece has a Red Bull's worth of caffeine. So it's a no-brainer to get the same amount of energy as this pack, right? To get the same hit of caffeine, you have to buy like 5 Red Bulls. It's a no-brainer. So go to strikegum.com or check it out on Amazon. And thanks to the dozens of you guys that have left us 5-star reviews on Amazon, because the cool part is that people who've never seen my channel can see that, hey, you've got all these 5-star reviews. Clearly, this is an awesome product. I need to pick some up. So now we finally are seeing more and more people join the Strike Gum team. And once you try it, I see the data. Yesterday, for example, 50% of our sales were reorders, were people who had ordered Strike Gum and were like, damn, I'm out, and got more, which is to me a sign that I've made something that people love. So thank you guys. Now let's talk about the Russian offensive in the face of the coming Ukrainian aid package, right? Now, obviously, nothing can move until it becomes U.S. law, and it won't become U.S. law until it clears the Senate and the president. But the U.S. can move its equipment anywhere it wants. So it's likely moving it to warehouses in Europe, right? It's already trying to move this sort of stuff. Pentagon spokesman Patrick Ryder said that the Pentagon's logistics system will be able to move security assistance in a matter of days, and the U.S. will rush the security assistance in volumes that the U.S. believes Ukraine needs to be successful. A Pentagon deputy undersecretary for defense told that U.S. lawmakers that the key is ammunition, artillery cells, and air defense missiles very quickly. That is priority numero uno. The DoD is actually preparing the first tranche. I was actually preparing it ahead of the vote in the U.S. House of Representatives. But here's the thing. Russian forces, they really want to see these gains. Let's see if we can find it here. Right. The Russian offensive action, here we go. right? 155 shells. Yeah, Russian forces are going to continue to leverage their operational advantages in material in the coming weeks to try to make at least some tactical gains and destabilize the Ukrainian defensive line in hopes of getting some operationally significant advances. Chasiv Yar. ISW continues to think that the material shortages are forcing Ukraine to conserve ammunition and prioritize limited resources to critical sectors of the front. Again, probably not true, especially once the ink is signed on this deal. Then Ukraine can be confident that it can push a little harder and throw a little more ammo at Russian forces. But the Russian forces know that until the ammo is actually in Ukrainian stores, they can't go full bore. So I think you're going to see this Russian offensive. In fact, they say Russian forces are going to intensify their offensive operations in the coming weeks to exploit the closing window of Ukrainian material constraints. That's the bottom line up front here. And really, guys, that's all I had. There's one other pretty grisly story about a Russian volunteer a Texan who volunteered with the Russian forces who met a pretty grim and untimely end. But you know what? I'm not even going to cover it. You can Google it. Texas volunteer, Russia killed. But it's a reminder of that, the Russian forces, they're not sending their best. I don't know what else to tell you. Anyway, thank you guys to our Colonel tier members at combatvetnews.com. Thank you to the Lieutenant tier members. I could not do this without you guys. Sincerely. Truly. You guys are the ones who enable me to do this every day. And if you're interested, become a member. combatvetnews.com. Thanks, guys. See ya. Cheers.